Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Bridging Creativity and Care, Exploring Poetry, Therapy, and Community Writing for Health and Healing. I am Nefesha Yisrael, Director of Programs here at CA for the Arts, and we are excited to have you with us today, and we'll be exploring how creativity and care intersect in powerful ways, shining a light on the role of poetry and creative writing in health, healing, and community well-being. Before we begin, I would like to give a special thank you to the Music Man Foundation for their generous support and for their belief in the healing power of the arts and its impact on communities across our beautiful state. We can go ahead to that next slide. Again, we appreciate you all coming today. I currently am in Los Angeles, getting ready for the Arts for LA Summit tomorrow. Please feel free to share in the chat, introduce yourself, acknowledge your indigenous land where you reside. If you'd like, you can share a connection with who you are and where you work. And this event, again, is being recorded. The recording, slides, and all resources will be shared to registrants. So if you need or miss anything, it will be recorded. You'll be able to catch up on it, and we'll share it with you after the webinar today. We can go ahead to the next slide. A few guidelines for our discussion today. Be sure to type your questions in the panel, in the chat during the Q&A in the chat box, and we will try our best to answer as many questions as possible. If we don't get to them, we'll also be sending some follow-ups. Please avoid any buzzwords and explain references and acronyms. For example, we often go by CFTA, but we are California for the Arts, and there are a lot of acronyms out there, so just be helpful to explain so that everyone is on the same page. And please be respectful to your fellow attendees here today, honoring different perspectives in the chat and when we have discussion. And we can go ahead to that next slide. I see people putting in the chat. Very exciting. Thank you. All right, a few Zoom tips that will help us all. So Zoom subtitles. If you need closed captioning, you click the CC at the bottom button, turn on the CC on or off at any time, and you'll click that little up arrow, which is circled in yellow on the screen here, to adjust your caption settings. If you'd like to comment or questions, you can put it in the chat again, and we will be keeping track of the chat to be able to respond to any questions. Let's go ahead to the next slide. A few more Zoom tips. This is helpful if you'd like to adjust your screen. You can make your screen bigger or smaller, the speaker size, by going to that view at the upper right-hand corner. You'll select side-by-side option and then hover your cursor on the vertical gray line. You'll see a little dot on the little dash in the middle there, and you can click to drag that over. On that box down on the right on your screen, you can see where it's circled in yellow to slide that over and adjust the size on your screen. And a little bit about our organizations. Like I said, I mentioned CFTA, California for the Arts, established in 2007. That is where we do our programming. It's our 501c3. This is housed under California for the Arts. It's where we do our statewide programming, our services. It's our advocacy network. And it also is where we house our Arts, Culture, and Creativity Month, our flagship event for the year. If you're not familiar, we'll share more about that. And then we also have our 501c4. If you're familiar with the C4, it's focused on lobbying. So California Arts Advocates is where we really focus on our policy and public investment, and that's where we do our lobbying. So these two organizations are kind of sister organizations, partnering organizations that work together, and often we do shared work with shared staff. All right, we can go ahead to that next slide there. And I believe this is the last slide for me. Again, this is our Bridging Creativity and Care, Exploring Poetry, Therapy, and Community Writing for Health and Well-Being. Our agenda for today, I just went over our welcome. We'll have Jennifer Kuo come in and give a little bit more about this webinar series. Jennifer is our arts and health consultant, a really dynamic person in the field of arts and health, and has a lot of knowledge to share with us, and has curated this webinar series along with our previous webinar series. And then we have presentation and activities by Jennie Linthorst, and then Brandon Allen will be next, and then we'll get into some Q&A and discussions with closing remarks. So for now, I'll pass it over to Jennifer. Thank you so much.
There we go. Thank you, Nafesha. So hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. So this series was created by listening to and interacting with a variety of people who work at the intersection of arts and health, as well as from feedback from those curious to learn more. This series has a total of 5 webinars that offer an introduction to the diverse and evolving field, highlighting how creative arts therapists, teaching artists, and facilitators contribute to individual and community well-being. Participants, all of you, will gain a deeper understanding of the different settings, approaches, and goals that shape this work, from clinical environments where licensed creative arts therapists support individuals with specific diagnoses, to community-based programs led by artists and cultural bearers that promote prevention, connection, and resilience. And at the same time, we recognize that concerns sometimes arise across professions regarding qualifications and roles in leading arts-based workshops for healing. And these conversations reflect important concerns, yet they also highlight the need for dialogue, clarity, and collaboration. And with mental health challenges and related issues on the rise, the demand for this kind of work is greater than ever. We believe there is space for a spectrum of contributions, from preventive and community-based approaches to clinically focused interventions, so that together we can support the full continuum of individual and community health needs. So with that, I would now like to first welcome and introduce our first speaker for today, Jennie Linthorst. Jennie is a poet, expressive writing teacher, and founder of LifeSPEAKS Poetry Therapy. Since 2001, Jennie has facilitated ongoing adult and kids writing groups and inspired private clients to explore their life stories through reading and writing poetry. Jennie is on the faculty of Arts and Healing Initiative, offering trainings to expressive arts communities. She also created the Poetry Toolbox for Classrooms, which is a social emotional learning-based writing curriculum used nationally in 3rd to 12th grade classrooms. Jennie spent 6 years as a writing instructor in the Manhattan Beach Unified School District and has taught workshops at the California Center for Creative Renewal, UC Irvine Extension, the National Association for Poetry Therapy, and more. Jennie has certification as an applied poetry facilitator from the National Federation of Biblio-Poetry Therapy, and a master's degree in spiritual psychology from the University of Santa Monica. Jennie's poetry has appeared in many publications, and she's the author of 2 books of poetry, one called Silver Girl and Autism Disrupted, A Mother's Journey of Hope. So we're amazing, and it's an honor to have her here. So let's welcome Jennie.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Everybody can hear me? Yes? Okay. I'm so glad to be here today, and I want to thank big thank you to Cal Arts for inviting me to speak to you today about the field of poetry therapy. I'd like to begin by asking all of you to consider for a moment if you have had an experience when reading any kind of literature, a novel, self-help book, memoir, poetry, or song lyrics, where a line or a quote stood out to you and made you pause and think about something in your own life. Probably all of you. Now think about if you have had an experience where writing or journaling about something in your life has helped you gain clarity, insight, or healing. These experiences are exactly what we are talking about today when we refer to bibliotherapy and poetry therapy. Next slide. Let's start by answering the question, what is bibliotherapy and poetry therapy? Bibliotherapy literally means books or literature to serve or help medically. Samuel Crothers first used the term bibliotherapy in 1916. It was adopted by librarians who saw the value of having a special designation for the practice of selecting and using books helpful to psychiatric patients. Next slide. After group therapy evolved and became more popular in the 1960s, bibliotherapy became more of an interactive process with discussions of readers' personal reactions to literature. Mental health professionals began to explore the therapeutic and evocative value of literary materials, especially of poetry. They recognized the beneficial potential of having clients write either their response to poems written by others or to original material, drawing on the client's own experiences and emotions. Poetry therapy is a specific and powerful form of bibliotherapy, unique in its use of metaphor, imagery, rhythm, and other poetic devices. In our daily lives, poetry, literature, journals, and song lyrics help us see ourselves more fully. And in time, we can come to experience the hidden facets of ourselves. Next slide. Why poetry? Poetry can be subtle. It can hold multiple messages and at the same time be emotionally direct. Its honesty helps people explore difficult issues. When participants hear a group member or a poet speak from the heart, they become more willing to do so themselves. Next slide. In a typical poetry therapy session, a trained facilitator presents an accessible poem to the participants and guides them in a discussion of how the poem evoked an emotional response to them individually. Choosing the right poem is important here, one that meets the right tone or life theme relevant to the client, but also with hope. It's called the ISO principle. For example, today, we're going to read a poem by Mark Nepo, and I will ask that you pay attention to any lines or words that stir in you a response from your own life. Where do you find yourself in the poem? Often one line or image can elicit memories for someone or help them see a situation they are dealing with in a new light. After each person discusses their personal reaction to the poem, the facilitator then leads the group in a writing exercise in response to the literature. Often the participants have never written before, so each is encouraged to not focus on writing a publishable poem, but to allow them to explore their inner stories on the page without critique or poetic expectations. After journal writing, the participants then share their words with the group, and their inner truth is honored by speaking it out loud and truly being heard by those around them without judgment or critique. When poetry therapy participants tell their own stories through poems, songs, and journals, it provides vital material for the therapeutic process. Finding their own voices is a self-affirming step that is often followed by a cathartic release, greater self-awareness, new insights, and fresh hope. It is important to mention here that the focus of poetry for healing is self-expression and growth of the individual, whereas the focus of poetry as art is the poem itself. But both use the same tools and techniques: rhythm, metaphor, sound, and image, to name a few. Next slide. The connection between expressive writing and wellness is widely researched by Dr. James Pennebaker at the University of Texas, Austin. His landmark study reveals that those who have a regular practice of expressive writing experience stronger immune support, better sleep habits, improved mental health, regulated blood pressure, and reduction in pain caused by chronic diseases. Writing helps our brain contextualize and organize sources of grief or trauma. Without it, our thoughts get stuck in non-constructive, repetitive patterns. Next slide. Poetry therapists work in many different environments and with many populations. We are working in hospitals, prisons, treatment facilities, schools, retirement homes, and shelters. We work with hospice groups, cancer patients, family support groups, veterans, children, and many more. In 1980, the National Association for Poetry Therapy was formed to bring together professionals from the fields of health, literature, writing, and education to expand this work worldwide. Next slide. I became certified in poetry therapy in 2002 from the International Federation of Bibliopoetry Therapy, completing background requirements in literature and psychology, plus 440 hours of training in didactic study, facilitation, supervision, and peer experience. You can get more information on their website at poetrytherapy.org. I then went on to receive a master's degree in spiritual psychology, merging those techniques together to facilitate private and group workshops for adults. I lead multiple monthly writing groups on Zoom and work one-on-one with adults, creating writing experiences unique to the life themes the client wants to work with. That is the most creative part of my job. Connecting with the client and designing curriculum that enhances their personal growth journey. In the Q&A later, I can address the important ethical considerations when doing therapeutic work with clients, especially if you're not a licensed therapist. When my son was in 3rd grade, I created and taught a children's poetry curriculum called the Poetry Toolbox for Classrooms, inspiring children 3rd through 12th grade to write poetry while developing social emotional learning. Students learn and practice 5 voices of poetry while writing about their own lives, enhancing literary skills and their own self-discovery through expressive writing. This curriculum is being used in classrooms around the country and is available to anyone, all of you, through an online training at thepoetrytoolbox.com. Next slide. As a poet myself, I use the power of the poetry therapy process to help inspire a deeper look into my own life. My poetry books explore life themes of early parental loss, losing my mother to cancer when I was 12, my journey as a mother raising a neurodivergent child, the joy and complexity of a long marriage and growing older as a woman. If you are interested in learning more about my workshops, training, and books, you can direct message me in the chat and put your email in there, and I'll put you on my newsletter and we can be in touch. We can talk about the Poetry Toolbox for classrooms and workshops and anything you would like. I think the best way to understand poetry therapy is to experience a taste of it. So we're going to go to the next slide, and I'm going to lead you through a quick interactive experience. So before we begin, just a few guidelines here. 2 words that I always use with my groups are permission and compassion. So I encourage you to give yourself permission to allow this process to take you where it wants to go. There's no rules here. You can't do this wrong. So, let it guide you and follow where it wants to take you. Compassion. Please have compassion for yourself that this can be a deep process. Even though we only have a few moments together doing this, it can go deep. So have compassion for any new insights, memories, emotions that may come forward. Self-care, very important. Please take care of yourself. If you need to step out for a second or take a breather, do what is comfortable for you to take care of yourself in this process. Silence your critic. This is so important when we go to do any form of writing. We have so many old memories of poetry from school and writing and may have been critiqued or judged. So you're not sharing this unless you want to, and you can just ask that critic to go step aside. This is not about needing to write a good poem or even write a poem. You are welcome to just journal. Most of my clients do, especially in a short amount of time. So just trust the page here and trust what wants to come forward. Next slide. All right. We are going to read a poem by Mark Nepo. So I'm going to take you through this process. I invite everyone to just take a deep breath and take a moment to begin to receive some language here. I'm going to read this poem twice. So the first time, I invite you to even just close your eyes and just listen to it. You're not being asked to get it or analyze it or understand it exactly the way that the poet may have wanted you to. This is about hearing it through the lens of your own life. So first time, just hear it, and then I'll read it a second time and ask you to go a little deeper with it, and I'll ask you some questions that can help you go deeper with the poem. All right, so let's just take this in. Being Carried by Mark Nepo. The things that happen to us are trying to have a conversation to make us stop or turn around. The things that matter are waiting for us to drop down after the first conversation has relaxed our will. Then they will shine their light without warning, like a doctor, into the back of our eyes and ask, "How long have you avoided rest?" If we answer truthfully, they will introduce us to beauty, who after a time will make us cry and throw our judgments into the sea. Okay, before I read it again, I'm going to just read the questions at the top right there that are for you to consider. So you can just take this in and then experience the poem a little deeper. What in your life might be trying to have a conversation, make you stop or turn around? If it could shine a light into the back of your eyes, what might it ask? How might your honest answer introduce you to beauty? All right, so I'm going to read the poem again. And now I invite you to go a little deeper into it after those questions. And notice, are there any lines or a section that is stirring something inside you about your own life? And just be open to it. Pay attention to it. Being Carried by Mark Nepo. The things that happen to us are trying to have a conversation to make us stop or turn around. The things that matter are waiting for us to drop down after the first conversation has relaxed our will. Then they will shine their light without warning, like a doctor, into the back of our eyes and ask, "How long have you avoided rest?" If we answer truthfully, they will introduce us to beauty, who after a time will make us cry and throw our judgments into the sea. Okay. All right. So I have some possible lines for you at the bottom on the right side. And these are just suggestions, but I am encouraging you to take your experience of thinking about those questions and also your experience with the poem to lead you into some journal writing. And we're going to take about 9 minutes here for some writing. And here are some possible lines if you need one. The things that matter have been waiting. Or, I stop and turn around. Or, I listen for the question. And there's no rules here. You don't have to follow any of those. So feel free to use a line from the poem or to consider one of the questions that I offered you to do some journaling on. And just trust the process, trust the page, whatever comes forward. All right. I'll let you know when there's about 2 minutes left to bring it to a close. So trust the page. Go ahead and start writing. 3 more minutes. We still have about 2 more minutes if you're still writing. And if you feel complete, read over what you've written and see what's there for you. Okay, take a minute to finish the sentence you're on. It's okay if you're not done. So in a group or a private session, we would have more ability to go back and forth without so many people. But this is a process, as you can see, that you can do very much on your own. So this next step is important as we begin to reflect on what we have written. So I would love if anyone wants to share in the chat, they're welcome to share their writing, or what is the therapeutic step here that's so important is to reflect on the whole process of reading the poem, what came forward, possibly some of those questions that I asked you to consider, and to check in with yourself. How am I feeling? How did it feel to write that? Are there any insights that stood out to me in what came forward from my own voice? Is there anything surprising if you were to read this aloud? Oftentimes that's when participants can get emotional and surprised by, wow, I didn't realize I had so much emotion or feeling behind a certain line. And that's an opportunity for more writing. And you can do this process on your own with any excerpt from any book or poetry and reflect on it through journal writing and then reflect on your own writing. So anyone want to share? We've got about 4 minutes, I think, before we turn it over. Any sharing in the chat? It can just be some reflection of what came forward or stood out to you or a part of your writing, or if anyone wants to raise their hand and share with the larger group.
This is Giuliano. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
I can hear you.
First of all, thank you for this space and allowing us to gather and self-reflect through art. Yeah, I'm a mental health first responder for crisis, and my therapy has always been art. And as when they call 911, you don't turn around, you keep going. But through my personal therapy, I'm looking to stand still, much as a totem pole involving the elders with what I do. So I don't like to think, I like to know, but as a professor of doctoral students, I don't want that responsibility and involve arts, lifestyle, and value. This is very awesome. Um, I'm an emotional cat by nature, but I'm high maintenance in preserving values and sacred and safe spaces. So this is really awesome. for me, I don't turn around anymore. I cut the fat really quick because there's no time to deal with mediocrity. And when you call 911, you have to handle it. But I am looking and attempting to turn high expectations and lifestyle to more of a community. But I'm made as a first responder. So this helps me. I have notebooks all over my house. Um, yeah, just thank you for this. And yeah, we need to listen to what we don't listen to, and that voice is within us. So I give gratitude for this space. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your reflection on that. Anybody else, maybe one more on anything that came forward from the process of writing and looking at the poem? Anybody? Anybody in
Vidu,
the
your hand's raised. Hello. Go ahead. You can unmute yourself.
Hi, Vidu, are you there?
Just a second. I'm sorry, I was on a different view. Hi, Jenny.
Hi, Vidu.
Hi. So I'm really glad to be here, and also Jenny, I absolutely love your work, and I'm a long time student of yours, and so I've just appreciated being able to let poems percolate in me, and I think for all these years. And I think what's coming up for me is that I've been evading things that happen to us, are trying to have a conversation I've been evading, just like the shadow of my life and my art, and being at a crossroads where I can't go backwards or forwards. And so I've been writing and just working with this, and there's just a lot there. So I just wanted to thank you for all the beautiful work you do, and also so happy to see Jennifer Cool here and all these wonderful people. Thank you. And I could share more of my lines, but I think that's enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Vidu. Yeah, that was beautiful to hear that connection to that line. The things that happen to us are trying to have a conversation. I mean, that alone can take all of us somewhere. What is the conversation that we're having with the things going on in our life? And to really be listening. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you all. I know that was so fast and that was a deep poem. So I appreciate you being willing to go and dive deep and see what even little nugget came out. But you have a taste of how this works. So we'll talk more in the Q&A. Okay, Jennifer, I'll hand it over.
Wow, thank you, Jenny. Thank you so much for that experience. That was really, really incredible, very peaceful and reflective. And thank you all for going on that experiential writing with us. So we'll have time for Q&A as we move forward, but I'm going to introduce our second speaker for today. So our next speaker is Brandon Allen. Brandon currently resides in California's San Bernardino County and was born in Memphis, Tennessee, where he grew up surrounded by the effects of addiction and the struggles that came with it. Finding hope and joy in 2009, the trajectory of his life drastically shifted and a path to healing was laid out. Brandon is a speaker, renowned poet, and youth advocate, empowering the next generation through storytelling, leadership, and creative expression. As the founder of Youth Writers Camp, Inc., and program director at Rescue a Generation, he brings over 15 years of experience creating healing spaces. He is also a father, TEDx speaker, and author. His work blends spoken word, mentorship, and curriculum to foster resilience, identity, and hope. And before we welcome him, I just want to throw in that at the summit last year, we had an open mic and I was standing outside of the theater and heard Brandon doing poetry and it drew me in. So welcome, Brandon. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. And I hope this is going to be a great session. So thank you for taking the time to join us. I'll pass it over to you, Brandon.
Hello, everybody. Hello. Good afternoon. It's good to see you all. I can't see you all, but I hope that you see me. I'm super excited to be here with you all and share in a little space. Do me a favor. I wanna get started, but I kind of want to jump in. I hope that in this space we build relationship enough, even in this short time, where you can trust the process, trust me, and trust what's being created. And hopefully, there's something special that happens in this time together. So, what I'm asking is for everybody just to take a second to close their eyes. I want you to close your eyes, put your feet flat on the ground, take a deep breath in and out. Take a deep breath in and out. I want you to consider the first time poetry changed your life. The first time you heard words flow together that connected you to a source within yourself that allowed you to know that something outside of what your experience was possible. The first time you witnessed shift, change, transformation, hope, resilience, love, power through words, rhythmed in motion. All right, you can open your eyes. Let's get into it. Thank you again. So my presentation is emotional resilience through creative writing. My hope today is that we not only get some understanding about the power of what we do with Youth Writers Camp, but also how we can continue this narrative of shifting the stories that are being played through writing. So we can go to the next slide. Again, my name is Brandon Allen. I was born in Memphis, Tennessee. I learned easily how societal norms can affect your story. One of the things that's interesting about my story is that it was connected to so many different parts of other people's tales. And even through my experience and the things that you just heard in the intro, one of the things that I've been most empowered in is that the story never ends. And I think the power of poetry is there's always a possibility to continue the story. There's a place that even though there's a period here, you can continue whatever the narrative is, and it doesn't have to end at what happened. It can continue to be told. And I believe my life is a story of continuance and building, and even building resilience in spaces and a bridge for access for other people to have the same kind of story. Now, I want to share a quick fact, and then I want to ask you a question. Here's a quick fact. Did you know that the number one cause of death is, well, I was going to go to that slide next, but thank you. But the number one cause of death in young people is between the ages of 10 to 24 is unintentional injury. All right. Who happens to know the second leading cause of death in that age range? You can put it in the chat. I'm sure most of you may know. And this really just kind of re-emphasizes the reason why we do this work. Who might know the second leading cause of death, which for young people between the ages of 24, outside of unintentional injury? And it's very unfortunate and extremely sad. It is, we can go to the next slide. Unfortunately, it is absolutely suicide. Suicide is the lack and loss of hope that sometimes hits the lives of this generation. And what we know is that a lot of times the reason, even for a story that I recognize even so familiar, why this becomes something that's possible is because we don't know a story outside of the one that's existing. In the work that we do, we understand that writing, that poetry isn't just a way of sharing something powerful, it becomes a lifeline. Becomes an opportunity for them to have access to a new creative aspect that shifts not only the story that they're looking at, but gives them the opportunity to see something new. Have you ever wanted to see a new reality, look out the mirror, look out the window and see something different than what you've been experiencing? Poetry gives you an access point to crack open the skies and watch words redevelop whatever you're experiencing in a fresh way. It allows you to connect to new ideas, new stories, new hope, and new possibilities. As we go to the next slide, I want to share a little bit about what we do with Youth Writers Camp in that space. Youth Writers Camp is dedicated to creating safe spaces for youth to express not only their emotions and share their stories, but it allows them to find healing through creative arts by fostering social emotional development, literacy engagement, and creative storytelling. At Youth Writers Camp, we decide to aim at resiliency, empathy, and empowering young people. We create what we call a safe haven for youth voices. We empower them to know that their story not only matters, but there's a space of rescue, a space of understanding, and a space of healing in every time they share the story that is in their real life. We can go to the next slide. Our purpose is simple. We help youth and families find healing and hope, redefining their legacy by shifting the narratives. We put the pen back in their hand and let them tell a new tale of whatever's happening within the context of their now, and let them shift their future by every dedication and dictation that they create. They get to see their stories transformed. It's not just about writing poetry, it's about rewriting stories and narratives. They build communities, they foster transformation. We show what's possible when one student brings a ripple effect to their homes, to their schools, and to their entire communities. We can go to the next slide. So why does this matter? It matters because we teach young people how to create. Create by providing safe spaces for emotional growth and storytelling. Equip them with tools to overcome challenges and building resilience. We empower families and communities to share in the transformative power of shifting their narratives. And we allow them to know that life is not only about the things we see, but the things that we declare. We speak, we shift, we see. That we know and understand that your mind, if you want to change your world, you have to change your mind. And sometimes the things that they write down, the things that they speak of, the things that they start seeing, they can now shift by the words that come onto the page. And we do it in multiple ways. We believe that our core values are to create. Creating looks like this, and we can go to the next slide. It looks like developing courage, resiliency, empathy, authenticity, transparency, and enterprising. We believe that the boldness that you can stand in, even when you're facing challenges, allows you to build resiliency so you can bounce back and move forward. And understanding that the resiliency that's developed in you causes you to be empathetic to yourself and those around you, allowing you to completely be your full, authentic version of you. Knowing that the way to understand and see that is leaning into transparency. So the atmospheres and the openness allows for something real to take place. And knowing that your story is not only something that matters, it's something that should be shared and put out, and for you to be able to experience with others. It's creating you to step in to innovation and dynamic mindsets that shift, change, and make things different. I want to share a little bit about how we do this. Like, what is our methodology about how we create this space? Now, we lean into arts-based research, and on the next slide, as you see that, we'll kind of go into what that looks like. Arts-based research is a way of using creative expression and making the speaking subject the center of the research. Essentially, the work and the research that we're doing, we put them at the forefront and allow their stories to be the ones not only telling it, but also become the main evidence of the fact that this is actually working. They're telling the tales. They're telling the stories of transformation. They are the reality, and they get to live in that space and become the main focal point of it. Now, why is it so important that we give this generation, these young people from the ages of 10 to 24, why is it so important that we see this happen? I want you to know, and I'm going to share a little bit in the next slide about some data. Did you know in San Bernardino County, about 16% of youth report major depressive episodes or anything that's deeply happening, or even some extreme happenings in their lives over the last year? And of all of those young people that have reported, that 60% of them get no support, they get no access to resource, they get no help, they get nobody to step in and be there for them when they're going through these stories and struggles. In fact, when we're looking at the reality of how many of them are still dealing with these issues, we understand that this 60% of untreated youth are sometimes sitting in classrooms with others, affecting their grades, affecting their attendance, affecting their relationships at home. And not only is it combined with that, we know that in San Bernardino County and Riverside County combined, between the ages of 10 to 17, 60% of youth read below grade level. The question is, how do we engage not only their mental health, but also push them forward into being able to see something shift in their dichotomy or their reality to help them see something brand new? Youth Writers Camp comes in to allow you to know that you can not only tell a new story, but you can re-engage in reading literacy. You can re-engage in the stories you tell. You can re-engage in your reality, and you can see your hope come alive. We give them access to shifting social emotional development. We allow them to walk through their process of our 10-week program, to retell stories, learn how to process their journey. And now they're reading and writing weekly to places and leaning into spaces where they weren't ever before. You see students who weren't engaging within their classrooms re-engaging. You see young people who wouldn't tell stories or share with their family finally sharing their truth. And you see them stepping into a space to really know that these things are possible. And the question is, how do I know that this works? How do I know that this is even possible? If you see this picture, I'm going to share a quick story. If you see this picture, it's hard to see, but if you see the circled images, those are me. That is me in middle school. I was in about 7th or 8th grade right here. And in 8th grade, I was coming into a time where I was becoming really, really highlighted in sports. On these highlights, you'll see that I was first team all county, I was first team all district, and I was first team all state in the state of Tennessee. And simultaneously, while I was experiencing these things, I was also for the first time attempting suicide. With all these things happening in success in my life, I also was in the space where I didn't want to live. One of my teachers actually found out that I was having trouble. I was writing these poems on the back of manila folders, and one of my friends saw it and told my teacher, and my teacher, who was my art teacher, pulled me outside and said, "Hey, this is a little scary, and we have a couple of options here. We can either share with your principal, your parents, or we can, step into this space, or you have another choice. You can keep writing poetry, and we can share that poetry together." At this time, poetry not only became an access for me to tell my story, but it saved my life. Youth Writers Camp created a bridge for young people to not only share their stories, but re-engage into something new. So far, we've published 35 young people who went and told their stories and engaged in fresh ways. Every week, we go through different conversations, have different discussions, and we compile together within our curriculum all of their tales and their stories. We sit them with professional editors and with graphic designers, and every single one of them become published authors. We've now actually, after this cohort, have reached 45 students who become published through our program. Young people who are now walking away with a published book through an actual publishing company to where they can not only sell their art, where they can also be able to give to their families, share their stories, and be able to be included in this space. During our showcase, this last cohort, we had a young person. He was 16 years old. He was battling high anxiety to the point that he couldn't keep a job. He had to homeschool, and he was being let go from a job because his anxiety would cause him to freeze. He would get into high moments and he would freeze, and he wouldn't be able to think, operate, or do anything. He said that he continuously was dealing with it and that he was afraid to do the showcase because he felt like he might freeze on stage. Well, navigating through our program and him becoming more vulnerable and practicing these behaviors and actions, when we had our showcase for our last cohort, we had over 120 people in attendance. This same young man who would get on spaces and freeze, got on stage, performed 3 poems, and one of them he performed not only in English, but also in sign language. He is now a published author, and he's sharing his poetry around the community. And in fact, he performed at another open mic recently. We're watching young people not only be able to tell their story, but they're also watching them shift the narrative of what their reality is. My daughter, who's been battling her own journey through her mental health, feeling unseen and unheard, 13 years old, recently transitioned to live with me. And it's been a journey with her as well. She decided that she on her own wanted to be in my program, and she became a published author herself. Being able to share the stage with my own daughter, hear her tell her stories, has been not only healing for me, but also allowing me to see that this can be a reality for somebody who's even the closest in my community. My baby. I share all this to say that our stories are the stories that have been needing to be told for a long time. Not only the stories of our students, not only the stories of the young people that we're connected to, not only the stories of this generation, but the stories of the little people that still live inside of us. The stories that have been healing, the stories that have been restoring, the stories that have been coming alive. Every single one of us are building to a space to not only shift the narratives in our reality, but help shift the narratives around those that we're connected to. Everything we do is about making our stories real and showing others how their story can shift through the words they say. I believe totally that the work we do in Youth Writers Camp isn't just a work for us, but it's a work for this community and generation. We all are shifting narratives. We all are stepping into a space to connect people to new realities. We all are helping them navigate new stories and becoming bridges of access for healing, restoration, and hope, allowing them to see the resiliency of their story, one word, one poem, one new tale at a time. Today, transformation isn't just theoretical. It's happening in real time right now. And we're a part of connecting words, connecting stories together to see these things happen. As we go into our next portion, I want to challenge us to not only live into what we've been doing, but to do it right now again for ourselves. I want to push us into practice. I want to push us into a space where we can reconnect the little people on the inside of us that are still healing, still navigating the stories, to where we can become a testament to the things that we push and share and encourage in others. I want to lean into a creative writing prompt. And this prompt is going to be interactive and challenging. We can go to the next slide. Here's your challenge. How deep can I go and still return to the shore? I want you to, for a minute, to imagine a deep dive into your emotions. I want you to take yourself into the deepest depth that you can and bring yourself back to the surface. I want you to share your story, your environment, your family, or a pain that has impacted your current view on reality. You can share how you overcame. You can share how you're still enduring. You can share how you're becoming resilient. But I want you to be encouraged and empowered to tell the story exactly how it is. You can use any type of poetry you want. You can free verse. You can rhyme if you like. Or you can write sonnets or prose. However you choose to write today, even if you're writing a short story, I want you to write it. I have 3 things that I always say to my class, and I want to share with you as you're beginning to write. Number 1, these are your words. That means that they have the power to shift and bring life and death and narrate and change the trajectory of whatever's happening right now. You get to be responsible for the words you share and take ownership of them. This is your house. This is your space. This is what you do. This is your moment. Nobody's coming in your bubble to shift it. This is your safe place. And lastly, this is your bank. Whatever you put into the bank, that's the only way you can get something out. So whatever you put into this moment, whatever effort, whatever commitment, whatever story, whatever tale, you want to see something out of it, this is your chance to go to the reserve. I want you to go in and I want you to share right now. We're going to give you space for the next about 10 minutes to share. All right, so let's get to writing. Next few minutes. All right, I know I said I gave you a few minutes. We're going to give you about, let's see, we're going to give you about 5 more minutes because I do want to give some space if anybody wants to share out loud what they wrote. So we're going to give about 5 more minutes. All right. All right. I would love to hear some of our stories and some of us sharing a little bit. I would love to hear from someone as we share who would like to boldly take the step forward and share. You can either share out loud, you can share in the chat, of course. We would love to hear from someone. And again, as we shared earlier, it's not about perfection, it's about your story, it's about coming to life. Oh, Corinne, I would love to. Corinne, did I say it right? Yes. Okay.
Thanks. Created to save the irreparable by unhealed zombies, used to gratify, to serve, to unleash. Born with spark too bright to extinguish, hope strong enough to survive, graced with people who introduced life, who discovered me, filled with gratitude, finding new pathways, striving to be a steward to the love that saved me.
Snap it up, everybody. Thank you so much for that, Corinne. We appreciate you very much. I saw that we had another hand that was up, but I don't know where it went. Oh, Loretta. Loretta, would you like to share?
Hi. I'm actually
Hello.
gonna have to take off my glasses. Okay. I fell 15 feet off the tall sailboat and fell fathoms deep. Panicked, then made calm by his voice, which blocked out the laughter that skimmed the 10 feet of water overhead. The biggest fish skirts by, and I close my eyes. I hold my my screen. I'm going to his gentle voice. Don't panic. Don't worry. Breathe out. You float to the top. Me. Yes. Now I'm at the top of the world. Who's laughing now?
Clap it up for Loretta. Thank you so much. That was beautiful. That was
And that's a
beautiful.
true story. That
Thank
they
you
were
for that.
laughing while I thought I was drowning. So thank you for letting me just put that in something that's beautiful and not keep it as a memory of hurt. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for trusting the space. We have one more, Brittany. We would love to hear from you. Brittany, share the same last name as me.
Hi. Sorry, I have so many tabs open. I'm trying to find it. Okay. I am still enduring what it meant to grow up in a home with emotional and physical abuse and neglect. Little Brit is still wanting to be held and not only told, but made to feel like she matters. She wants to move with the confidence that the first people who are supposed to love her have her back. Little Brit and Big Brit are at odds because Big Brit knows she can no longer wait for that to happen. That time has passed and her choices are now to let the pain of her childhood consume her or to heal from them and fill the voids created with her own self-love. Little Brit doesn't understand why she has to make herself small or why she has to be perfect. Big Brit knows that these patterns of behavior that once kept her safe are now harming her, and that she has to not only unlearn these, but to learn new tools and practice them with the care and consistency that seem so foreign to her.
111.
All while the pangs of loneliness come and go and intensify at night. Why is it always at night? Sometimes she feels like these wounds she's expected to heal are larger than what she can patch up, and perhaps it's wrong to treat deep systemic harm like it's a personal flaw. That's it.
Wow. Snap it up for Brittany. Thank you so much for your vulnerability, your honesty, and trusting this space. And we want you to know that both Little Brit and Big Brit are safe here. So we thank you for sharing both of those. Listen, I want to share a little bit of a surprise. Is it okay if I share that part now? We wanted you to know that your words are powerful and necessary, but we didn't just want you to know that in one way. We wanted to be able to tell these stories continuously. Today, we're inviting you, if you wrote anything at all, we're inviting you with the opportunity to put it together in a one-day anthology. We're going to actually take your writing, if you would like to, and put it together in a book, in a compilation of this experience. Whatever you shared earlier, even what you wrote right now, we're going to compile them together. And you're free if you would like to share it anonymously. You don't have to put your name to it if you don't want to. Or if you would like to put your name to it and put something there, we would love to be able to compile this experience of stories of healing, stories of reflection, stories of restoration, and stories of positivity to be shared for us all. If you're interested in hearing more about Youth Writers Camp and the work we do through our 10-week program and just the work we do engaging students and how we can even get students through navigating their social emotional journey and becoming published poets, please reach out to me. Send me a message. I can get you connected with my email and even our newsletter as well. And if you are interested in doing the anthology, we will have access for it. The link is there and we will make sure we send that access out to you as well. Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you so much, Brandon. Thank you for sharing your story and about Youth Writers Camp, what you're doing out there for the youth in the Inland Empire. And, just with your words about we speak, we shift, we see, super powerful. And thank you everyone for also contributing, even with, both Jennie and Brandon, your sharing of your insights, experiences, and practice has been so powerful. And that's been demonstrated and praised in the chat box. And for everyone here, I feel like everyone is, thank you for your vulnerability and just sharing your words and just space together. And the anthology, that's going to be epic. So again, we invite you to all, as an option, share any and all of your writings from today, from Jennie's presentation activity and Brandon's as well. The instructions will be in the Google form. LT on the team just dropped it in the chat as well. And there'll be a due date for you to submit by, just so that Brandon can compile it together. And then we will send that out in another email later on. So give it up, step it up for everybody on this webinar today. Thank you. So we're now going to transition into our discussion and Q&A. And LT is going to help me just get Nafesha, myself, Jennie, and Brandon up on screen, on Spotlight. And so there has been some questions in the chat that we've been polling into uncompiled documents so that we can read through them. However, before we get to the chat with questions from all of you, which I know many of you are probably eager and more curious about the work that Jennie and Brandon are doing, I would like to first start off with 2 discussion questions for Brandon and Jennie to answer. So, so the first one is, in addition to what you both shared today, how else can attendees learn more or experience how poetry and writing can support their health and healing? So who wants to take that first?
I can speak for my perspective on that. I think on a personal level, I would encourage everyone to be more open to, when you're reading anything, what stands out to you, and read more poetry. There's so much poetry on the internet, and there's all these, poem a day things, and go to the library, go to the bookstore, look at anthologies, find voices that are speaking to you. And leaning into more of the poetry therapy perspective would be to write some in response. Maybe collect a quote book of things that you read and passages that mean something to you, and then journaling with them. So that's a personal way. You can go to the poetrytherapy.org website. They have a resources page on their website that has a lot of information of other organizations and places you can take workshops if you want more facilitation. Obviously, I'm there for that too. If you want to really explore it on a personal level, one-on-one, we can go very deep with that, and in groups. So that would be the personal, for me.
Thank you, Jennie. And Brandon?
I mean, Jennie literally said everything you could do. But as well, I encourage you to find spaces where the art connects with you. Anytime you're looking for a way to learn something new, find some place that it actually speaks to you personally. Right. So find a story, find a person, find an artist that you can connect to personally, so you can hear it in a way that you can personally lean into. And then practice yourself. Like she said, I love the fact that you can read, recite, rehearse, and then respond, right? Like all of those things, like in that space. And so being intentional about doing that for yourself. I can find something for myself. I can read it, I can rehearse it, I can recite it, I can take it in, and I can respond to it. So being intentional in that, building that relationship to finding intentional responses to real moments, I think will allow you to be able to lean into it more.
Awesome. Thank you, Brandon. And the second question is for both of you. What strategies can help strengthen collaboration among practitioners and facilitators working across sectors and community settings to achieve shared goals?
I'll go first. One of the things that I've noticed that I've even benefited for is understanding that like communal spaces are spaces for all. Removing competition and leaning into having a seat at the table. It allows you to understand that whatever we bring to this space, ultimately everybody can eat from, right? Number one, it builds that space. The other thing is creating more conversations and dialogues about the work that we get to do. That way, sometimes we don't know what kind of resource we can be to each other because we don't share enough with each other. And anytime we can have these intentional conversations that can really bridge the gap. One of the things that I love about the work we can do, we can go from the classroom to the juvenile halls to the community centers to our backyards with the work that we get to do. And it's because we're intentionally looking for spaces to not say that this is mine, but this is ours. I'm working on a different anthology for the San Bernardino County. It's it's called Our Community Speaks, and it's one county, one community, many voices, and realizing that we're one space with many voices. So we have many expressions, many resources, many gifts, many talents, many strengths, many professional spaces, but we're still one people who all need something from each other.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we need more of this. I mean, I think this is a perfect example. I mean, when I was seeing people checking in on the chat of the organizations they're from, like this is a huge networking situation right here where we need to, I hope we can refer more to each other. Who's working with children? You know, my curriculum, I would love to have people refer that to more schools that want something in the classroom. You know, I can refer families to Brandon. How can we help, you know, network with each other so that we can share more of the resources that are out there and be able to build curriculum, you know, not constantly having to reinvent the wheel. We can share so that we're reaching more people.
Well said, well said. Definitely cross-sector collaboration is key, and leaning in on each other for best practices is really, really essential too. So thank you both. So now we'll turn it over to questions from the audience, and Nefesh is going to help facilitate some of the questions that you all are putting in the chat.
Yeah. Thank you, Jennifer. And Jenny and Brandon, we have a few questions. One in particular, Jenny, you've already spoke to, but I think it might be good to share space and talk about the question proposed by Robin. And they asked they said so many of these positive scenarios, so many of these are positive scenarios, words and references are being used by people who have negative or destructive intentions. What do we do as workshop leaders if the task is to validate their experiences and perspectives? And Jenny, your answer in the chat was to think, you said, I think this depends on so much on the situation. As a facilitator, we have to set guidelines and manage the interactions while keeping the space of allowing people to express and be heard. And I feel like you both really did that well today of creating such a positive space, a space that, Brandon, you said at various moments of safety and reflection. And so just want to open that up if either of you would like to speak to Robin's question.
Yeah, I think it's a really important question that we could probably spend a whole workshop on. But I think that, you know, if you're working privately with someone, that's a different situation where you're setting up your own guidelines and expectations and creating that, quote, safe haven that Brandon was talking about. But remaining open to the curiosity of people's perspectives and why certain language might be used, or why they're pulling from a source that feels derogatory. I think you want to use the process to dig deeper. I think if it's in a classroom or it all depends. Is it a group? That's where you need training in group process, where you learn to manage a group. You learn to, depending on the context, how that's managed, to keep the room open so that you're using the process to dig deeper into the why behind it, but also to hear them and to hold what they're saying. But this is so specific to what situation it is, and making sure that you have the people. If it's in a school, you have a teacher, you have, you know, when I'm in a school classroom, it's different than if I'm in an adult group. So it depends. Brandon, can you elaborate more?
No, I mean, I agree. The intentionality behind training and professionalism behind group facilitation is key, but also understanding like this almost dichotomy between like the freedom to share your story, but also the ownership of what your story impacts on others. We have
Mhm.
this reality of impact versus intention, right? You can have an intention, yet there's always impact. And we have to hold both things as equal,
Mhm.
right? So I think creating that space of validating that there's a story to be told, but also holding space for the reality that your story or whatever you're sharing might have impacted others in a way that might not be so positive. Right. So, because that puts the responsibility back into the hands of the sharer, and it doesn't just put us into a space of navigating or trying to dictate their journey, but also putting them in a place of like responsibility. Sometimes people miss that moment, but yet we get to still give them the chance to take on their own ownership.
Yeah. And I think too, this in a situation like this, there's follow-up needed. People are putting some stuff in the chat here. I know some.
Yep. I'll read that out. So Vidhiro, dear Jenny and Brandon, wondering if you have suggestions for how to deal with specific health conditions such as diabetes and addiction, and how can poetry help to shift behaviors and patterns?
Yeah,
That'd be a great question.
I would love to share on that specifically. And then I see the last thing that Robin shared because I see that too. In 2000 and early 2024, I was diagnosed with diabetes. And it kind of hit me really hard because I call myself still a young man, even though I'm getting older. And I was at a place to where it was really messing with my mental health, but also putting me in a place where I didn't feel like I could produce anything. I was having writer's block and everything. And there was a moment to where I started, instead of being frustrated, I started telling a story of one, how I got here, but I actually started writing about what it feels like to be diagnosed. And I found once my mental health started shifting the narrative of what this diagnosis meant for me, it allowed me to help re-engage realities of what I wanted to see. So the things I started sharing, I began to implement, right? Saying that I wanted to, that I wasn't going to allow this to change my story, that I was going to be around to see my daughter walk down the aisle, that I was going to shift the spaces that I needed to, allowing me to start telling and writing down the things. I started putting things in place to actually become the practice of what I wrote. So I ended up losing 60 pounds over that time frame. And it wasn't just something that I said, but it became something that I got to do and become in the real moment. So in regards to that condition, it's in specific, as well as addiction, I get to speak to the battles that I had and my father had with addiction, and how that reality no longer had the power to dictate what my story was, right? Yeah, it's just putting a pin back into the hand of the person who wants the experience to become what they want, and putting it out of the thing that's been labeled to them.
And that's beautiful. Absolutely. I love that. Putting the pen back in their hand, because it's through the writing process that they're going to find their way. So I'll tell you, one of the most magical things about poetry therapy is I can put the same poem in front of 100 different people, and they're going to find what it is that they're struggling with in their life. And they're going to find something about that. I mean, consider Mary Oliver's Wild Geese. You do not have to be good. You only have to love the soft body, right? But just that word, I mean, those few words, you do not have to be good. People, depending on what they're dealing with in their life in the moment, are going to use that towards working through. And when people write over and over on what it is that they're struggling with, they always make progress. So it doesn't matter the diagnosis. It doesn't matter whatever situation you're in. When you put pen to paper, you are going to work something through. You're going to lay something out. You're going to recontextualize. And often people write on the same thing for years and years and years, and suddenly there's a shift. So I think it's the process itself takes you there.
Thank you so much for those answers. Jen, do we have, I know it's 1:28, so I'm just being conscious of time and everyone else's time.
You can do one quick comment maybe, or question real quick before we close out.
I see Loretta's hand raised. Loretta, if you have a question you'd like to share very, very quickly, then we can answer that question.
A quick question of how to keep my own triggers more at bay than currently, like, for example, I got on the Zoom late and I was just hearing silence. Then I read what was written. And because I'm a doctor by training, I was like, doctors have to put light in the eyes. And I didn't see the prompts to the side at all because I got so caught up in that one line of the light in your eyes that the doctor showed, instead of looking at it in the, like, just the deeper version of that, and to reflect on myself and my experiences. And it wasn't until the deep dive prompt that I was able to start looking at myself and my experiences outside of the view of doctor. You know, even though I've not practiced in forever, you know, and I'm doing art and writing now. So just any hints to just keep me on track. Also, as a facilitator of doing this with the groups, especially groups with mental illness.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you felt that your experience as a doctor, you came in late and were ruffled, and then you saw that one line and it took you out and you weren't able to really see the whole prompt and go into that. That's an opportunity, I would say, and you're asking how to deal with that as a facilitator. If I were working with you and you were drawn to that line and it took you out, I would probe that. Or if I put a poem in front of somebody and they don't like it, or they feel some real resistance to one line, I lean into that as a facilitator with that person, because that is something in itself that possibly could be written about and understood better. But you know, it's a possibility, and it sounds like you got there later. But I hear that sometimes we can get, you use the word triggered, and yes, certain lines and certain things will spark us. But I actually lean into that, if that makes sense. Brandon, you want to speak to that?
No.
Okay.
Again, the only reason I say no is because you keep saying the things I would absolutely say, so it'd be kind of redundant. But yes, lean into exactly what's happening in the moment, because that's the best story to be told, what you feel right now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Loretta, and thank you, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and share some of our closing remarks. We're also going to put in the chat a survey. We would love to hear your feedback about this webinar, to kind of continue growing all of these great conversations. So the survey will be in the chat. It will also be in the follow-up email that we'll send to everybody. Again, thank you, Jenny and Brandon, for your insights and practice, and all of you for attending. This recording and the slide deck will all be sent to everyone in a follow-up email. The anthology will be forthcoming as well once we have all the submissions and everything's ready to go. And we hope that you'll join us for the next webinar in the series on dance movement therapy and community dance, as well as the rest of the webinars that you can see on the schedule. We had our music one last month. You can watch that on YouTube now as well. And then we also have a free introduction guide to arts and health. It's a bird's eye view of all the different components in this field. You can download it for free on our website. Again, we'll have all of these links for you in the chat and the webinar follow-up email. And I'll hand it over to Nafesha for other closing remarks.
Thank you so much again for joining us today. As Jennifer mentioned already, your feedback matters, so we hope that you take a few minutes just to fill out our survey. I put it in the chat already. We'll send it. Jen just put it in the chat also. We'll send it in a follow-up email, and we take all of your thoughts into consideration and adapt accordingly. Please stay connected by following us on social media and subscribing to our newsletter. And again, thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Jenny, for joining us, taking the time to facilitate this session today. It was incredible. I think that we see it in the chat how it was seen and felt, and it really touched many people, and it will when people watch the recording also. So thank you, and we look forward to seeing the anthology also.
And with that, we will see everyone hopefully next time. Please take care of yourselves and have the great rest of your week. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.